In today's video, I'll be talking about the final balance changes that are coming for October. Supercell has made some adjustments to the work in progress ones after listening to community feedback, and now there are 4 things that are different from the work in progress ones, and there's a total of 17 cards that are getting balanced. So in today's video, I'll be giving a recap of the ones that I already discussed in the last video for those of you guys that missed it, and then I'll be talking about the new cards getting balanced, and then I'll also be showing you guys what the community thinks of the balance changes. Alright, so the first one that's staying the same is the Bomber nerf. It's still having its damage reduced by 2%, going from 230 to 225, which means it's not going to be able to one-shot spirits anymore. The Goblin Demolisher's nerf is also staying the same, where the duration is being decreased by 30%, going from 10 seconds to 7 seconds, which means the maximum distance he can run before exploding is 7 seconds now. And surprisingly, guys, they have decided to keep the Void nerf the same, decreasing the damage by 32%, going from 472 to 320. Personally, this is one I thought that should have been adjusted a bit and maybe only minus 20 damage, because 32 is a massive number. And now we're getting into the first thing that is different from the work in progress balance changes. They decided to increase the nerf that the Evolved P.E.K.K.A is getting. The heal per kill is now minus 20%. I believe before they made it minus 12%. Now it is minus 20, going from 471 all the way to 376. So this might end up being too big of a nerf, but I guess their thinking is it's better to be safe than sorry, and maybe if it's too much, they can buff it a little bit again after. And the Evolved Tesla's nerf is still staying the same, where they're taking away the Death Shockwave. So it's still going to have shockwaves when it's up, when a unit comes into radius, and then whenever that dies and it's out of radius and it goes back down, and then if it comes back up and starts targeting something else, it'll keep getting those shockwaves, but no more Death Shockwave. But the regular Tesla is still getting the hit speed buff of 9%, going from 0.83 to 0.91, so no changes to both of those two things. The Evolved Wizard nerf is still staying the same, minus 25% to his knockback, going from 4 tiles to 3 tiles. I think this is overall a pretty small nerf, and he'll still be decent afterwards. Now this, guys, is very, very shocking to me. They added an additional Cannoneer nerf. Yeah, you guys heard me right. So remember when I already said they were increasing the first hit time by 33%, going from 0.60 to 0.80 seconds. They also added a 4% damage nerf on top of that. So now it's going from 401 to 386. So the Cannoneer is getting 2 nerfs. I think, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of you guys agree with this, I think this is absolutely absurd. I know there's a lot of pros in this game that think the Cannoneer is a little bit too strong and slightly better than the Princess Tower. And while that may be true, these 2 nerfs were definitely not necessary in my opinion. I would have personally done 0.70 seconds, because 0.80 is just way too much. 0.70 would have been reasonable, and then 4% as well, maybe 2%, but this is just overkill in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. I think that this was way too far, way too big of a nerf. And this is another new adjustment to the work in progress balance changes. The Evolved Mortar is actually getting a nerf. The first hit time is being decreased. So instead of it being 0 seconds, so essentially it's instant, it is now 1 second. So you're going to have much more time to react to it, and it's definitely overall going to make it a lot less effective, because I feel like that first hit time being very quick is part of what made the Evolved Mortar pretty decent. So that is going to be a noticeable change. Is it going to kill the evolution? I don't think it will, but it might be a below average evolution now, after finally recently for the last few months being in the meta again and being above average. It might quickly change to being below average again. So the Goblin Curse buff is still staying the same. It's getting its DPS increased by 20%, going from 25 to 30. I think this is pretty good, because the Goblin Curse is pretty bad. I also agree with this Goblin Machine buff. It's getting its hit points increased by 5%, going from 2,196 to 2,304. I think that's good, and they kept it the same. The Skeleton Barrel buff is still staying the same. They're increasing the death damage by 9%, going from 133 to 145. I think this one is okay as well because I definitely consider it a below average card. The Suspicious Bush buff is still the same as well. The speed is getting increased by 33%. That's the speed of the bush, not the bush goblins. It's going from 45 to 60, and I also agree with this one because the bush has proven to be pretty weak overall and hard to synergize in a lot of decks. They're keeping the Evolved Goblin Cage buff as well. The hit speed of the cage is being increased by 10%, going from 0.91 to 1 second. So it's going to be dealing slightly more damage when a unit is actually pulled into the cage. I don't think this is actually going to make it significantly better, but at least it's going to help it a tiny bit. And the Evolved Goblin Drill rework looks like it is staying the same as well. So the damage and knockback of the second and third spawns is getting removed. The deploy time for Goblin spawned after Submerge added. That is also something that, wait, it says new. So maybe that is actually an additional nerf from the work in progress ones because that says new. And then the second Submerge Goblin is being increased by 1. So the second time it spawns in, it is getting an additional Goblin. But overall, I do think that this is a small nerf to the Evolved Drill. But I suppose in some situations, having the second Goblin come in could be beneficial. So maybe it's situational. And then the Evolved Zap is getting its rework, which is still the same from the work in progress balance changes, where the third strike is removed entirely, but the second strike damage is being increased by 104%, going from 94 to 192. I think this ultimately is a nerf to the Evolved Zap, but I still likely think it will be viable in some beatdown decks. And lastly, guys, the Magic Archer, technically speaking, is getting a nerf, but it's only a 1 HP nerf. So the Magic Archer hit points being reduced by 0% because essentially it's only 1 hit point, so it's not even enough for it to be a percent, going from 532 to 531. The reason why is because the Mortar was treating the level 11 Magic Archers differently than the level 15 ones. Now it's always a 2-hit KO, no matter the level, fairness for all. So I think that's ultimately a good change, something pretty small and only having to do with 1 interaction, but still worth noting. Alright guys, let's take a look and see what the community thinks now about these balance changes. So Royal API actually posted a poll under them and asked overall, how do you feel about these balance changes? And as you guys can see, majority of people have actually said my life has no meaning, indicating they think the balance changes are not good. Surprisingly, I actually marked it as good. The only reason why I said they aren't amazing is because I think the Cannoneer nerf was way too much, especially now that they added a second one. And also, I think the Void nerf too much as well. Those are my two main complaints. If it weren't for those two things, I would actually think these balance changes would be amazing. SK said here, very exciting balance changes overall, lovely work. All that's missing is Cannon Cart. Looking forward to a new and different meta. Donald is the GOAT. Meta should be somewhat balanced next season. Evo Mortar going to be buns now, but oh well, at least other cards got decent nerfs. And to be honest, I don't know if the Evolved Mortar needed a nerf since the Cannoneer's getting a nerf, and the Cannoneers always played with the Evolved Mortar, so that's already an indirect nerf to the Evolved Mortar. So Tesla's back to what it was before they nerfed the Evo, but Evo is way weaker. Actual garbage, but also needed, I suppose. What the heck? Cannoneer's trash now. That's kind of what I was saying, to be honest. Cannoneer nerf is overkill, not fair. I agree 100%. And yeah, I mean, it's just, and then this guy also too, complaining about the Void nerf. I don't know about that, probably indicating that it's too much and they could have nerfed it a different way. I guess Princess Tower's the meta tower again. Yeah, my opinion, Cannoneer might even be worse than the Dagger Duchess now, or at least on par with it. I think the Cannoneer nerf was too much. Princess Tower is just going to be the best. You can expect it to be the tower troop used in pretty much every deck. Maybe that's ultimately a good thing, though, because it makes the game more free to play, and I suppose pros prefer it that way too, but it kind of does suck for the people that actually leveled up the Cannoneer that wanted to use it, but I guess this is what's going to happen now. So let me know how you guys feel about that. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. You can use creator code BOSS to support me in any Supercell game, and thanks again until next time, guys.